Well, Phil, our producer, has a program this evening, tips for 3D filament printing.
It's Tom. I go through this real quickly. So this was one of the we talked about the idea of kind of having the concept of quick tips, something that and so I thought I'd do something on filament printing, some filament printing quick tips. I've used filament printing, bought one, I actually my second one. I bought one probably in 2019, and actually bought a second one a couple of years ago. Uh, what I find is the filament printer is not great for modeling detail. It's great for modeling other things like the 3D printing of the framing of buildings, but I also find it's great for things like control panels. So I'll show you this. This is the control panel I'm putting together for my layout in my room, which takes modules that are portable and combines them with some fixed modules. On the left, you can see kind of the cabinet. The reason it's so large is the bottom is for a couple of bins or 4 bins to go in. And the top, the white part you can see there, that's where the wiring is. And I'll probably put some pictures of that in the future. But the front panel here is all 3D printed. So what you have on the left is the control panel for that area of the layout. In the center is the lighting panel for the layout. And on the right is the DCC power system. And there's an interior that goes in there that is not done yet. And you can kind of see at the bottom, this is basically an operational panel for part of the layout. And it's 3D printed, LEDs and push buttons through it, and it's kind of multicolor. So I wanted to talk about a few things that I've learned kind of doing these things and putting them together. So I got 5 real quick things to talk about. You can go back and look at this, and the slides can be available if you want them. The first is, and this is my environment. I use FreeCAD primarily for design. I do Cura as my slicer and an Ender 3 SE. So this is a less than $200 now, I think, 3D printer. So the first one is the concept of print layer management. So the printers, when they print, the basic slicer slices at a 45-degree angle. So if you leave that in the normal, just basically the way it's configured, the top of your prints is going to be at a 45-degree angle. And if you notice here on this blow up of that lighting panel, you notice that all 3 layers here are actually horizontal on the final print layer, which makes the outcome look a lot more uniform. So to give you an idea of basically the way you do that, this is that same one of those control panels, the one that's for the DCC. And you notice if you just slice it, the first time you slice it, you're going to get these things at a 45-degree angle. But what you can do is if you go into the top and bottom layer in the slicer, there's top and bottom line directions, and that allows you to basically set up how this works. So what I did was, the problem is if you're dealing with 200 to 300 layers and you want to figure out where you want lines to do that, to actually type that out would probably kill you. So clearly the obvious way to do it is to do it with a spreadsheet. So what I did was I put a spreadsheet together that you go in and you actually enter the total number of layers in the tool. You enter in a layer direction that you want. So it can either be one of the 4 directions, 0, 90, 45 one way, 45 the other way, or you can have basically the concept that it increments. So that says if it's 45, it'll do 135. If it's 90, it'll do 180. So it basically does a 90-degree increment, which is what they do in their basic formatting. So what you can do is you can now go in and pick any layer and change it and actually make that layer angle what you want. And what it'll show you is what's the angle of the layer, and it'll show you how it's going to print on your printer. So you can take this tool and real quickly plug in the data and information you get, and then it gives you an output, which is all of those things to go in and print. So even if you're doing a 200-layer print, once you find the layer, and the way you do that is you go into that angled print and you just move this down until you find the layer. And you notice right here, I've got a layer that's flat, and then there's a layer that's got some print on it. So I find that layer that's flat, and that's the point that I go in and I edit to actually change that number in that specific layer, and I change it to the direction I want it, and then I change the next layer back to the 45 or 135. So by doing this, what you can do is now generate an output that you copy and you paste it into that location there. And now when you do your slicing, you notice that what I've done is I've set this up so these layers now print in horizontal print. So if you want that, the tool, you can download, it's an Excel spreadsheet. So you just have to download the spreadsheet. Don't edit the cells and it'll work fine. Just start by putting the number of layers in at the top and you can automatically configure it. So you can just download it using this. It's up on the internet. The second thing is multicolor printing. So one of the things I really wanted to do was use the printer to print things in FreeCAD. I'm not going to go through this. You can do lettering. So this thing on the left is lettering. This is for staging tracks. And there's actually an LED in here. It's designed for a camera. So through the camera, you can see which staging track is which. You notice these panels over here were printed. So the way those are done is really simply is you find the layer where you want to change the color. So for example, when I do that lettering, like on this panel, what I do is I want to change it on the second layer of the lettering. I want to leave the first layer of the lettering that background color and then change it. So what you do is you find that layer. So layer 90 is the lower flat area. Layer 91 is the first layer of lettering. So what I do is I want to pause it after layer 91. And the way you do that is you go into Cura and you click on extensions, post-processing, and that'll bring up this window and you add a script. And what you do is you add the script. When you click that down, it'll say one of the scripts it'll offer you is pause at height. And what you do is you go in there and you edit this pause at height here to the number you want. And so what that'll do is at 91, the printer will pause. And what it does, it actually moves the print head back to a back position. I put a camera on my printer so I can figure out when it's going to do this. So I get there right away. What you do is you real quickly, either if you can get there when it stops, you can do it immediately. Or what I do is I restart it. You restart it by hitting tune to restart it. When you do that, what you do is you basically wait until it hits about 190 degrees, pull out the first color, put in the second color, and now it'll print that second color on top. So what you get is you get this, nice lettering that looks like this. Sorry about that. The third one I want to talk about is ironing for surfaces. So one of the things about 3D printers, filament 3D printers, they're like squeezing a tube of toothpaste. It's hot. It kind of levels out, but it doesn't level out perfectly. So when I started doing things like these cabs, this is actually one you can get from the O-Scale company online. Basically wanted to make these doors look a little bit better. So what you do is you actually can go in and iron the print head over the top of the part to remove print lines. So if you've got lines, it actually lets you eliminate them. So what you do is, in this case, I aligned the layers just like we talked about before. And then what I did was I put in ironing. And if you search for ironing, it'll bring this up and it'll tell you you can enable ironing. You can pick a pattern. There are some parameters. And what it does is it actually gives you, if you look at these two, you can see how much better the one on the right is that's been ironed and smooths out those lines in the print. So that's a third thing. Fourth thing is the elephant tool. So one of the problems with 3D printing is that first layer tends to squish out, especially because you push that first layer down towards the base to make sure you get good adhesion. That's called an elephant's foot. So it turns out if you type ELE in the search engine, you'll actually get this horizontal expansion that you can actually define the horizontal expansion. And so with the horizontal expansion, you can actually adjust it so that you step the first layer back. So instead of the first layer being like this and getting squished out when it gets squeezed out, by stepping it back a little bit when it gets squeezed out, it's going to be the same as the subsequent layers. And the final thing, little hint, is one on what I call, it's called Z seam alignment. So this is actually a spreader I built for I'm building some beat cars, and I wanted a spreader inside to essentially have the beats flow out, but also because I could put weights inside of it to weight the cars to a reasonable level. When I went to print these, what I realized was that it was starting the print head on this line, because it says it's basically not really specified. So what found you can do is you can go into where it's called Z seam alignment. You'll have to find this, and you can specify that you want to start it on the sharpest corner. So it'll pick on that layer. So if you look here, you see that it actually started right here on each layer, which means that on the actual print, you don't have that line anymore of where the print started. So that's all, folks. Didn't take too long. And I will stop sharing and see if there are any questions.
I think that ironing feature is pretty clever, because one of the I don't want to call it problems, but one of the issues with filament printing is seeing those lines, and well, that ironing feature seems to take it away completely, eh?
Yep.
That's
Well, the thing about this 3D printing thing, and I really encourage you got to think outside the box. So if you don't mind, Tom, I'm going to share my slides back one more moment just to point something out, because I doubt that anybody actually recognized this when I shared it before. Let me share this again. So if you look at this cabinet, notice the hinges there. They're 3D printed. These handles on the side that help me move it in and out, these CCC, California Central Coast, the name of the railroad, these little handles here, they're all 3D printed. These 4 hinges, it would have cost me more in gas to drive to the store and buy them than it did the time to 3D print. It would take more time and cost me significantly more in gas than to 3D print them. They're basically just the same thing you would buy as a door hinge as a 3D print, with a piece of coat hanger wire through them as the hinge pin. And they're very sturdy for supporting a 1/2-inch plywood door.
on the other 2 points, the seam alignment, starting in the corner instead of the middle of the potential model, that's a great tip too. And I guess the default can get you in trouble there. It puts in a seam where you don't want it, right?
Exactly. So it's just some points for those of you who decide you want to buy a filament printer. Like I said, for $200, it's amazing what you get. Anyway, back to you, Tom.
Well, thank you, Phil. There were some really interesting points there, even for us that aren't currently 3D printing, but probably will at some point.